Sundays had always been a quiet ritual for me, a chance to reflect, to breathe, and to find some semblance of peace in a world that often felt chaotic. But that particular Sunday, I walked into the church and felt a different kind of weight, the one that comes from betrayal so deep it refuses to be silent. She had smiled that morning, dressed in her Sunday best, offering a casual kiss as we entered. The same woman who had spent 2 years hiding texts, secret meetings, and lies right under my nose. 2 years of whispered phone calls, late nights at the office, and unexplained trips that now made sense in a horrifyingly clear pattern. I had discovered the affair through subtle signs at first. A lipstick stain on a blouse she claimed to have worn at a conference, a calendar entry erased too quickly, a friend's innocuous comment about seeing her with another man downtown. But intuition only leads to suspicion. I had wanted proof. And over months, I built it. Texts saved, emails cross-checked, GPS locations confirming every lie she told, receipts for dinners she claimed never happened. The evidence wasn't circumstantial. It was meticulous, undeniable. By the time Sunday arrived, I was calm, measured, and cold. I knew the sanctuary would be full. Families, friends, fellow congregants, people who had always seen us as a picture-perfect couple. She walked in, radiant, unsuspecting, believing the 2 years of deceit would never see daylight. The pastor had been sick that week, and I had been asked to read the passage, a small honor. But I had my own text in mind, my own message that needed delivering. The congregation settled. Hymns ended. I stepped up to the pulpit, Bible in hand, voice steady as I greeted everyone. My eyes scanned the room until they found hers. She caught my gaze, curious, perhaps sensing something had shifted. I began with scripture, the familiar verses that spoke of truth and accountability, but I did not linger there. I shifted slowly, deliberately, weaving into the sermon the narrative of trust, betrayal, and the consequences of hidden sins. At first, it was abstract, philosophical, a general meditation on human weakness and moral responsibility. But then I guided it subtly toward specificity, examples only she could recognize. I described the pain of unfaithfulness, the destruction wrought by secrecy, and the heartbreak inflicted when promises are broken. My words were still veiled in metaphor, yet they resonated like a bell she could not ignore. Her expression faltered. She shifted in her pew. The congregation leaned in, sensing the intensity behind my words. Then I revealed the undeniable. I described behaviors, locations, and patterns only the faithful would understand. I mentioned late-night office calls, trips never accounted for, moments of intimacy stolen from the vows we had taken in this very sanctuary. I described a betrayal that was not casual but sustained, calculated, and deliberate. I spoke not in names at first but in unmistakable identifiers. She knew, he knew, and now everyone else would know through the clarity of context. I could see the flicker of realization in her eyes, the sudden, white-hot panic as she understood what was happening. The room's atmosphere shifted. Whispers began, subtle at first, then louder as congregants connected dots. Faces turned toward her with a mix of shock and curiosity. Friends who had hugged us moments before now avoided her gaze. Her confidence evaporated in the space where sanctity and community had always protected her. Then finally I named him, not in anger but in precise, deliberate truth. I described the affair, the locations, the duration, and the deceit. I spoke plainly, without embellishment, relying on facts, texts, and receipts I had documented. There was no room for misinterpretation. The congregation gasped. Some clutched their hands over their mouths. Others leaned forward, eyes wide. She tried to interrupt, tried to deny, but the weight of my evidence, my calm delivery, and the community's collective gaze silenced her. The sermon ended not with scripture alone, but with the quiet truth of exposure. I stepped down, leaving the Bible on the pulpit, leaving the room heavy with revelation. People murmured, some comforted me, others were stunned. She left the pew, head down, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The whispers followed her, a tide she had no chance of controlling. Her image, carefully curated for years within this community, lay fractured. I did not shout. I did not throw accusations in anger. The evidence was sufficient. It had spoken louder than any voice could. The aftermath was immediate. Invitations she had once taken for granted vanished. Women who had admired her style and poise now regarded her with suspicion. Children who had waved to her politely at church events now hesitated. Her social standing, built on charm and perceived piety, crumbled under the weight of truth. Later, when she tried to approach me privately, her apologies empty and trembling, I met her with measured silence. There was no reconciliation possible. Betrayal of this magnitude, revealed in this public, deliberate manner, cannot be undone with whispered words. I had reclaimed not just my dignity but the moral high ground that she had attempted to manipulate. Weeks passed. She moved her attendance to another service, trying to hide from the fallout. But the church is a community, and word travels faster than one can flee. Her friends avoided her. Members who had once sought her counsel now kept a polite distance. She had created her own exile through deceit, and the exposure ensured that the consequences were not just private but communal. I, meanwhile, returned to the pews, quiet but unburdened. Truth had been told. Betrayal had been accounted for. The pulpit, a symbol of trust and guidance, had become the platform of accountability. I had not sought vengeance for spectacle, but for justice. Truth delivered to those who had believed in her facade and to myself, who had loved faithfully while being deceived. In the end, the lesson was clear. Lies, no matter how carefully woven, cannot withstand deliberate exposure. Words, evidence, and calm resolve are more powerful than anger. She had cheated, hidden, and assumed safety behind smiles and social norms. But the pulpit revealed everything, and in doing so, I ensured that truth, not deception, stood in the light. The community, once deceived, now witnessed justice rendered, not in judgment alone, but in the clarity of exposure. And she, the woman who had mocked my loyalty and broken the vows we shared, was left to face the consequences in a space she had always considered sacred, a space I had reclaimed, not with vengeance, but with undeniable truth.